folks, I've tried to record this video so many times and every time I start I stop, and I'm gonna go through with it this time. But if you're seeing this, it means I've had the courage to post it. If you're new to the channel, I'm Michelle. I hope you're well, and this is a very different video than the others that you'll see, every other that you'll see on this channel. I've never spoken about this on the internet. Only my closest people know this story. What's sparked me to talk about it is a few weeks ago in a video I just mentioned off the cuff that I'd had a very similar experience to that of Sandi Rzucek. And I said, if you'd like me to, I'd talk about it. And up to now, like I said, I haven't been able to go through with it. But today I'm going to do it. And I'm going to try and do this all in one take without edits. So you get the full, I don't know what the word is. I don't even know what the word is. The full experience, the full, anyway. So the Dr. Phil show, when Sandi and Frank and Frankie Jr. appeared on Dr. Phil, and Sandi talked about feeling Shanann's spirit the moment she died, and then being visited by Shanann, Bella and Cece after their death. That happened to me. This is why it's so hard to talk about that. I had a son, my eldest son. I've got two other sons and a daughter, but my eldest son, who was my second born, he was killed at the age of 21 years old. It wasn't murder. It was a driver, driving illegally, but he was driving carelessly, and my son was killed on the road, basically. And the driver didn't stop. Actually drove in a, they could tell the forensics were done like immediately on the scene. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. But unlike the investigations that I talk about on my channel, the police actually did their job, and they got forensic evidence. They recovered the vehicle a couple of hours after the incident. They traced that vehicle and they knew exactly who it was. But yeah, they could tell because the engine of the car had been damaged. It was barely drivable. But there was some fluid leaking from the engine, and they could look at the fluid and see he turned around. He turned around and went past my son dying in the road, and he drove home via another route. Anyway, what happened that night, it was the early hours of an August morning, and he was killed probably between about 3:30 and 4 a.m. And I woke up. It was probably around 3 a.m. And he was still alive at that point. He was absolutely still alive at that point. We know that. We know from CCTV. We know from people reporting that they'd seen him. But I just woke up with this ominous feeling, like the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I remember walking around my house, and I looked through every window. I don't know why I did that. I just looked through every window, and I was awake. and I must have been awake at the time he died, and this ominous feeling was just so intense. So intense. And then afterwards, you know, there was a police investigation. The driver did plead guilty eventually, so there was no trial. But it was a comprehensive investigation, and I thank the police so much for that. Having seen what has happened in the Watts case, and I'm trying to look at Christian but in the months after, it was, well, the first few weeks were just a blur. I've got to say, they were just a blur. But a few days after he died, I was doing something upstairs. I was probably like cleaning up or something, and I just heard hello. And it could have been a neighbour. It could have been somebody in the street. But I live in a quiet kind of little cul-de-sac area. It's kind of set off the road. It's not very busy. I just heard hello. And it was his voice. It was his voice. And I laughed, and I thought, oh, he's actually come to visit, because the joke was he never came to visit, because I work hard, he works hard, and yeah. But he came to visit. And then a couple of months after that, I had a dream, and it was so vivid, so vivid. And he came, and he was sat in a house. He was sat. I know the house that he was sat in, but the scene was very, very hazy, and you know, it was you know what dreams are like. They're kind of, you know, sometimes vague, but he was there so clear. And he was sat with a pack of dogs, with dogs all around him. And he loved dogs. I love dogs. And he was sat there with these dogs. And I thought, we've had so many dogs between the family members who've passed over Rainbow Bridge. And I thought, at least he's now looking after the dogs. And he said, I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm in heaven. And he wasn't religious. I'm not religious. My mother is. My mother's a Christian. But I don't have a religion. I'm a paranormal skeptic. I really am. But I've had experiences other than this, that I can't explain. And a few weeks after that, I had another dream, and he was outside. He was walking down the street where I live, and he had these pack of dogs all roaming all around, like running all around him. And he said something like, I'm going travelling. And he just walked away, and he walked off into the distance with these dogs, and that was it. I've never had another visit. I've never had another dream about him. He's gone. But in my mind, he's travelling the world. And as little Bella told Sandi Rzucek, little Bella could go to Disney anytime she wanted. Well, my son can go anywhere he wants, with as many dogs as he wants, and no one's going to stop him. Now, you might say, well, yeah, that's your brain. From a scientific point of view, because I'm a psychologist, you know, and the brain is a wonderful thing. And as a paranormal skeptic, I kind of ask the question, and I continue to ask the question, whether they were actually visits, or whether it was my brain coming to terms with it, bringing him forward in my brain and giving a narrative to something that was so utterly devastating and so sudden and just so devastating. So was that the same with Sandi? We could say it's exactly the same experience. I have had other experiences, not with him, but other experiences that are a little bit harder to explain. And I don't know if this really probably isn't the channel to talk about that. I do have another channel, actually, where I vlog and stuff, so I may talk about it on there at some point, but because it's that Dr. Phil show, when Sandi talked about that, I was like, yeah, I was with her. I get it. I've had exactly the same experience. Exactly the same. And I'll leave it up to you to decide whether this is a visit or whether it's the brain just being kind and creating a narrative. That's up to you to decide. Let me know in the comments. So I just wanted to share this, and maybe it will help other people. Maybe it will start a conversation. Maybe. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I've now got to decide whether I'm going to post this or not. I'll see you soon, guys.